Today, let's identify a simple clutch of ball python hatchlings. I'll show you the process that I use to identify all of my clutches, and I'll show you how to get consistent, accurate results identifying your clutches. Let's check it out. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me today. This is Adam at Proper Royals. If we've not met before, this channel is all about my ball python journey from hobbyist to business, and I document everything right here on the Proper Royals channel. I hope you'll consider subscribing and checking it out in the future as well. Love to have you. So I take for granted things sometimes that I've learned along the way, and it's so easy to quickly forget where we came from, right? I kind of take for granted a really simple clutch identification, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, because I remember my very first clutch, I was mystified by what I had going on in there, and clutch identification can be really challenging with ball pythons. But today I've got a really fairly simple one that's a really good way to demonstrate the process that I use, and whether it's a simple clutch or a complicated clutch, I always follow this process because it leads to consistent results with identification. One thing about this method that I will challenge even the most experienced keepers and clutch identifiers, I go through this process every time and it's tedious, but I do it because it forces me to consider everything that it could be. We have biases. We will see things that we want to see. We've all hoped that we hit something and then maybe realize down the line that we didn't, or that we were fooling ourselves. But again, we owe it to the community to label things responsibly, especially if we're selling. We want to be a breeder of choice for our customers, and how we do that partially is in very accurate, dependable labels for our animals. Couple caveats with ball pythons. We got the challenge of unknown genes that could be floating around in there. We got the challenge of parents possibly being mislabeled. We also have the challenge of people in our own community not being underhanded, but maybe just not with the education to label things properly. I see things labeled as het that are actually possible het. I see things labeled as 66% that are actually only 50% het. Those sorts of things. And that's not knocking anybody, but we do have a duty to try and be as accurate as we can and to be as knowledgeable as we can. And if we don't talk in simple terms and share simple basics, we'll never get to the complicated stuff. So today is a pretty basic clutch identification. And the process I use, this is where things get interesting, of other skills that can be applied to the ball python industry and hobby and community. In my restaurant career, one of my actually very proud accomplishments is that I achieved the level of certified sommelier in the Court of Master Sommeliers. And if you're wondering what that is a wine expert, is what that means, sommelier. What that has to do with ball pythons is one of the tests, the big portion of the test for a sommelier training and testing is what we call blind tasting and blind identification. We get a glass of wine that we don't know anything about other than it's right there in front of us, and we have to taste, smell, look at, consider many, many details and bits of evidence as to what that wine could be. And we are challenged to make a conclusion and accurately identify that wine based on grape varietal, region it was grown in, and the year that it was produced. Pretty big challenge. How do we do that? We use what's called a deductive tasting method. And I tell you all that because this is the mindset that I apply to identifying clutches. Here is the concept. You take and consider everything that it could be, and then you start eliminating what it's absolutely not. And what's left is a likely conclusion for what it is. Today we're going to apply those principles to, again, a very basic clutch identification for ball python hatchlings. So the pairing for this clutch, the parents pairing, again, very simple identification today. It fits this exercise perfect. The next clutch video that I do is actually much more complicated, and we'll use these same principles, and then you'll also see where I actually ask for help of others in the community. I kind of crowdsource information and data via opinions and comments because I'm going to need it on that next clutch. But this one today, like I say, is pretty straightforward. So the pairing on these parents was a female Enchi, and she was paired to a male banana Enchi. No hets, we don't have to worry about that side of the genetics. Our options for what could be produced are fairly limited. So we could produce a super Enchi banana, an Enchi banana, we could produce Enchi, and we could produce banana, and we can produce normals. As you practice, you'll know that you'll be able to figure that out in your own head. What really helps is the Morph Market genetic calculator, and it's great to study that. It's great to plug in different pairings, and you'll start to learn, especially with hets, how the genetics work and what the math is on how that all works. We're going to go through this today. I'll show you. We're going to switch the camera. I'll keep the camera right on the snakes for most of the rest of the video, and I'll talk you through this deductive identification process for this fairly simple clutch. So this is the first animal from this clutch. Again, it was a pairing of banana Enchi male to an Enchi female. And all too often what we can do is get pretty excited and just jump to conclusions. But let's walk through this process. On today's pairing, we could probably jump to most conclusions on these and be accurate because of how simple the pairing is. But if we practice the process simply on complicated ones, things will go a little bit better and more smoothly. So again, we considered that all possible options were a normal, a banana, an Enchi banana, and a super Enchi banana. Let's just start ticking through those. Is this a normal? He's not a normal. How do we know it's not a normal? We know what a normal looks like, but we would normally see blacks and browns and alien heads. We don't see black, brown, or alien head here. Okay, so we know this is not a normal. Then, is it a banana? What would identify a banana? Well, a yellow coloring. Yeah, we got a banana here, so he's at least banana. Enchi is the next gene. Is it Enchi? What would Enchi do? Enchi causes striping and a reduction of pattern, and it can also bring in some really cool kind of orange and peach colors, especially in hatchlings. I do believe this is Enchi, both from the striping that I see and the elimination of the classic alien head look on a normal. There's some other ways to identify Enchi as well, both in the eye and sometimes in a head stamp, but this is pretty blatantly obvious that it's Enchi. We have at least a banana Enchi right here. The next thing that it could be is super Enchi banana. Is it super Enchi? I don't have a whole lot of experience in super Enchi. I happen to know the answer on this one, but let's say that I'd never really bred before and I wasn't sure if I was hitting Enchi or super Enchi. One of the things to do, obviously, is look at the resources around us and places like Morph Market and whatnot. The other thing we can do is compare it with clutch mates and see where the evidence believes us to conclude what this animal is. Let's check out some of its clutch mates as well and compare notes. So here I have one of its clutch mates. Again, we see, now it's good to wait till these shed to identify because they really do change colors, but this guy never shed for his first shed. It's kind of strange. He has taken a meal, and we see that he is banana, and if we go through the same process, he's not normal, he is banana, and is he Enchi? He's clearly much different than his sibling here. What we do see is a reduction in the alien heads, particularly towards the tail, and we see some of those peach colors and striping, particularly towards the back there. So I'm going to conclude that this is a banana Enchi, and this is a banana super Enchi. And when we see them side by side, we see clear variation, and we're able to deduce that this one must have more going on, and the only more that it can have going on is the extra dose of Enchi. Banana Enchi and super Enchi banana siblings. Next up from the clutch is this little guy, and he has shed. And if we go quickly through the same process, is it a normal? No, it's not a normal. Is it a banana? Yes, it's a banana from the yellows and the evidence that we've already talked through. Is it Enchi or is it super Enchi? Those are the only other two possibilities it could be. When I look at this guy, we see lots of the alien heads. I don't see a pattern reduction, and I don't see really much of the kind of orange, pink, peach that comes with Enchi. The other thing I would look for Enchi is any striping or crosses on the top, and I don't see any of those. So I'm left with, this must be a single gene banana. In breeding, it's not always so easy to identify clutches. Sometimes you get some like nuanced genes. There's genes that as single expressions don't do a whole lot, but are really super valuable in combos. Enchi is a great gene because it does do something on its own single expression, but there is something called polymorphism, which is where the same gene can express itself differently in different animals, and we're going to look at that real quick here. This is another of the clutch siblings, and let's tick through the list here. Do we think it's a banana? This is clearly not a banana. Banana makes itself readily known. We know very, very, very quickly if an animal has banana in it, or if it doesn't from the absence of the yellow. Very easy there. Is it a normal? I don't believe this animal is a normal. You could see right up here, there's next to no alien heads. There's just this one little expression right up here towards kind of the upper torso where the snake would be. But really on the back, you start to get these nice stripings. You get these cross patterns on the back here. And then check this out. I love this line of Enchi that I'm working with. I don't know if you could see it or the camera picks it up, but there's this great kind of pink and orange color going down the side here. I would have thought actually if this concentration of pattern existed all the way up through the snake, I would have actually claimed this to be a super Enchi. But I believe this is a great expression of what Enchi can do as a single expression gene. Look at that striping, those teardrops coming down, and those cross patterns on top. Really beautiful Enchi female right here. This animal makes it just a little bit tougher. This is a little more nuanced of an expression of genes here. So let's go through the process one more time. Let's name what it could be. And by eliminating what it's not, we'll end up with a conclusion of what this is. Is it banana? No, it's not banana. Is it super Enchi? It's not super Enchi. We have a lot of alien heads here. We're not seeing that broken up striping like we did in the super Enchi banana. Now is the question of, is it normal or is it Enchi? Let's go with the normal question. There's blacks and browns and there are alien heads on here. Okay. Let's check down towards the tail. Do we still see any alien heads, or do we start to see a reduced pattern with some tiger striping? Yes. Do we see the crosses on top? I see them right in here. And what about that nice peach orange color we've been seeing on this Enchi clutch? I do see that right in here. I'm going to conclude that this is an Enchi that's a little bit less expressive than this Enchi. So you see a great example of polymorphism right here. Now it is possible this could be a super, but I truly don't believe that it is. I think that this one is just a bit nicer of an Enchi than this one. These are full sisters. They both happen to be female. Just two different expressions of Enchi. I believe these both to be Enchi as well. So that's the process that I use on identifying clutches. Again, we start with everything that it could be, we eliminate what it's not, and what we're left with is what it likely must be. Again, there's polymorphism, there could always be another gene around. How these genes come into life is mutations, so that happens in ball pythons. That's part of the fun. But as a simple process, I thought today's clutch was just an absolutely perfect example of how to apply this deductive method. Those animals are all going to be available once they've eaten enough and get up to size. If you're interested, check out the link tree below for all of my contact information. I will get back to you. Stick around for the next clutch identification video. Will be a pretty complicated one. It's a female leopard het pied that I paired to 4 different males. Some were visual pieds, some were het pieds, some had codoms, some did not. We got work to do on that clutch ID, and I'm gonna need your help. I'm waiting for them to shed, and then we'll film that video as well. In the meantime, keep it right here on the Proper Royals channel. Check out these videos to keep up with everything that we have going on. I'll tell you about all my clutches, our breeding plans, our business, our marketing, all of it I share right here on the Proper Royals channel. I cannot wait until I get to see you in the next video. Until then, see ya!